These Epstein files basically prove every conspiracy ever. We're going to be going through everything from black magic rituals, the worst types of crimes committed. It's a lot of people in these files, celebrities, presidents, leaders, politicians, ancient Canaanite deities, you know, we have it all. Jeffrey Epstein had a bank account, which was called Ball. The word pizza is used over 900 times in Epstein's various emails. UFOs do come up in these new Jeffrey Epstein files. Epstein was responsible for the trans movement. This stuff takes it to a whole different level. Welcome back to my channel. Happy Tuesday. Yet another day paying taxes to likely non-human pedophiles on a spinning rock. So the Epstein files have dropped, and that's a sentence that we have said before because some of them have dropped before. But this new batch of 3.5 million documents really blows all of them out of the water, in my opinion, all the stuff that's already been out. Like, this stuff takes it to a whole different level. I was actually pretty psychologically distressed and going through it, reading it on my phone over the weekend. This is basically an I looked through the Epstein files so you don't have to video. Let's treat it as that. And so we're on the same page. These Epstein files basically prove every conspiracy ever. Basically every conspiracy theorist, every schizophrenic, you know what I mean? Apologies to the schizophrenic. We're so sorry. Although there is also a lot of unverified stuff. We're going to be going through everything from black magic rituals, the worst types of crimes committed. It's a lot of people in these files, celebrities, presidents, leaders, politicians, ancient Canaanite deities, you know, we have it all. From Donald Trump all the way up to Ball. So all the way down to Ball, I guess I would say. But just let's get into it. We have an email from someone to Jeffrey Epstein saying, I decided to sacrifice poor homosexuals. I don't know. I feel like it's just clear language. Like, I don't know the last time I would have ever said that as a joke or anything symbolic, right? So a lot of this stuff, you guys, you cannot take at face value, but a lot of it's really hard not to, because what other context does this have? We're talking about sacrifice here. We have, oh my God, Prince Andrew hovering over a defenseless child on the floor. Yep, real blue blood. We have this correspondence with Epstein talking about a classic stage 3, a young girl who was traumatized through sexual abuse as a young child and is now gradually developing special and supernatural abilities, which can sound pretty crazy until you understand what MK Ultra is, until you understand what trauma-based mind control is, until you understand all of these ancient religions, all these ancient mystery schools for which Jeffrey Epstein clearly, you know, pulls a lot of his beliefs from. We'll get into that as well, and how they really do find through ancient dark science that through trauma you can develop extrasensory abilities. Unfortunately, there is a lot of occult science having to do with that, and it can be backed up by occult science, but occult just means hidden, as we know. So, wow. We have an email from Jeffrey Epstein to someone who is redacted. There still is a lot of redactions in this dump, unfortunately. So who is it? We don't know, but saying, where are you? Are you okay? Loved the torture video. I have to say, not only is it obviously so disgusting how the administration has handled this, and I say this as someone who voted for Donald Trump, I say that this is really a blight on his administration, that even though this is the first administration to release all these files, the fact that it was handled so poorly in the meantime, right? The fact that they fought so hard to release it, I will say you can kind of see some reasoning as we go through, and you'll see some, you know, disrespectful reasoning why the public wouldn't or shouldn't get access to all this information. But at the same time, to lie and say it was all a hoax or a nothing burger, you know, it's very disappointing. It's also very disappointing to see this just a week after there was this massive trend from TikTok and Groypers and Nick Fuentes talking about how Epstein was cool and had aura, and meanwhile, torture. You know what I mean? It's just the worst possible demonic things. I don't know if that was some sort of Fed op to normalize Epstein right before this drop to make it, you know, lessen the blow or something, but it's really, really It was just a bad look that happened a week ago, right? These files also prove that Pizzagate was real. So the word pizza is used over 900 times in Epstein's various emails. I don't think I've ever emailed about pizza in my life. I don't think I've ever received an email, maybe like a Domino's coupon, right? But that would be from Domino's. And mind you, the FBI has actually for a long time now released that words like pizza, there's a little graph here, actually are code words for predators, for things like boy, girl, little boy. Hot dog equals boy, which definitely reminds me of the time that there were all those emails from Obama about ordering hot dogs in the WikiLeaks to John Podesta. We need the Podesta files. That's what we need. Pizza equals girl, cheese equals little girl, pasta equals little boy, ice cream equals male prostitute, walnut equals a person of color, map equals semen. It's very easy to dissociate from all this. Because this is traumatic to even find this out, right? And that's what trauma causes, is dissociation. It's very easy to not integrate this information into your real life, to kind of maybe picture this as some far away, like, oh, this is what the elites do. But this is, it trickles down all the way to this is who's running our lives. This is who, all of our overlords who are going to throw you in jail if you don't do your taxes right one year. But we have 3.5 million pages of the Epstein files and 0 arrests, except for Ghislaine. I will say the feminists, unfortunately, really do eat when they say all of these men were doing this and the one person in jail is a woman. Dunk on feminists all you want. You really can't argue with that, unfortunately. So we have this We have this woman who sends a photo of her baby to Epstein and says, your generosity has no limits, after receiving an unbelievable sum in her bank account, and that she's never seen such a number in her bank account. And also, you have the Megyn Kellys of the world, the Nick Fuentes of the world, people saying that this was barely legal women. What are we talking about? We're looking at babies being sold here. Harvard professor Martin Nowick emailed Ghislaine in 2002 to thank her for her hospitality, and out of nowhere said, I'm so happy I didn't kill anybody, referring to their visit. I'm glad you didn't either, but why was that ever on the table, right? Here's a photo of Epstein in a room with a bunch of different boxes labeled CIA. You can really see why JFK spoke against the 3-letter agencies, fought against secret societies, fought against all of this, because why has the CIA not been disbanded? How much more evidence do we need that they're offing our presidents, violating the rights of citizens? There's so many operations that target citizens right here at home, and they have this whole lore that they only do things in regards to people abroad, to foreigners, and in other countries for our safety. What is all this going on here in the homeland? So this is very interesting. We have Jeffrey Epstein speaking to a Harvard scientist about the sexual benefits of turning children trans. So this has been a big thing on X. A lot of people are saying that this proves that Epstein was responsible for the trans movement. I'll read a little bit of this. So it's an email from Robert Trivers to Jeffrey Epstein. And the email is basically breaking down the differences between male to female and female to male transsexuals. So many transsexual women are very attractive and easily make money, which in turn they assert promotes their prostitution, since they have to pay hefty fines for injections every week, but they are sexually happy. It talks about how, contrast to the poor female to male versions, they are unhappy and lonely. They are men with mum-pums, the worst of both worlds. And ending it with saying that, by the way, we are now pushing this intervention earlier. So notice your 3-year-old son has trans tendencies, so now you intervene with hormones. I would be frightened to do that, but who knows? So this, I feel like people are running with it a bit and saying that this means they engineered the whole movement. This is an email in 2018. So to really believe that, you'd have to think that this kind of started in like 2018 or even around there. Obviously, we know trans people have been around forever, and the trans movement ideologically started well before 2018. So I think they're commenting on a movement that they are taking advantage of and likely helping push, but I don't think they deserve the credit for inventing it. Jeffrey Epstein had a bank account which was called Baal, the ancient Canaanite deity, if you don't know, who children were sacrificed to, which, You know, as I say, there's nothing new under the sun. Child sacrifice, that's been going on forever, since the beginning of time. They believe and they do it because they say that it gets them, you know, a spiritual power. There is a trade-off with these deities, and I'm not here to say whether that's true or not. You can make up your own beliefs. However, they are doing it for these reasons. A lot of people like to ignore or pretend as if the occult aspects of this don't exist. But as I've said in the previous Epstein videos I've done, in the Epstein victim survivor interview I did, it's so important because it's the background of what they believe, why they're doing the things they believe. And if you don't think it's relevant to you, knowing what occult groups our leaders are part of, knowing what their sick beliefs are, the origins of the ideology that they, you know, employ to harm us, I think it's incredibly ignorant to not know that, to not want to see that, or to disregard it and say, I don't believe that, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it is what it is. This is just pure Satanism, and it matters that they believe that, right? You look at things like the Satanic Panic. Was it like some irrational panic, or was it a justified panic, right? Because calling something a panic, I would say child sacrifice and rampant Satanism is actually something to panic about, to take action about, but like panic, that's actually appropriate. And I just want to put this in really quick. Nicki Minaj posted, just as the Epstein files were being released, with this tweet: "Your favorite artists have been practicing rituals in a satanic cult where they take babies from other countries and mutilate them and kill them as a form of a blood sacrifice to their God. You see, when their master is Satan, you must constantly shed blood, however the jig is up." People love to disregard this stuff. I think part of it is it's just too painful to hear. And then, of course, if you're an atheist or agnostic, you don't really have a lens to see this from. If you're a Christian who really knows your Bible, you know this is all biblical. This is all laid out. But let's just take a breather. This is really heavy. This is really dark. Let's talk about something really quick that's a lot more fun, a lot more positive. Today's video is sponsored by Snaxy, the mobile app that turns your game time into real rewards. Snaxy is powered by Aniba, a trusted global gaming marketplace used by over 15 million players worldwide. And it lets you earn real rewards just by playing games that you already enjoy playing. So here's how it works. You open Snaxy, swipe through the games in the game discovery section, see exactly how much you can earn, install one you like, play it, complete tasks, and earn coins. And once you've earned, you can cash out your Snaxy coins for real rewards. You can redeem for PayPal, Amazon, Uber Eats, Netflix, Visa, gaming credit for PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, Nintendo, or even cash out straight to your Aniba wallet. And yes, Snaxy is currently giving away over $150,000 each week to its users. If you use my link, you'll get a sign-up bonus worth up to $10, which will get you well on your way right from the start. It only takes a few minutes to set up, and then you're earning from your regular downtime. It's honestly simple. Download Snaxy, pick a game you already know, play, earn, and redeem. You play, they pay. People are already cashing out, and the bonus is only available through my link, so make sure you guys grab it right now while it's available. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment below to download Snaxy, get your $10 sign-up bonus, and start earning today. Just make sure that you open the link on your phone. Thank you so much to Snaxy for sponsoring this video, and now on to the rest of the video. I also wanted to include this video of Jeffrey Epstein reacting to Jesus being brought up in an interview with Steve Bannon.
One of the recent discoveries of mine with respect to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle is they never wrote anything. They spoke, and people around who could write wrote. Socrates could think. So that was...
Jesus of Nazareth was the same way, right? Never wrote anything.
I thought he was a carpenter.
He was a carpenter.
Didn't he need like a little carpenter's tonight? I don't want to get that.
But at least his written record. Right. One last thing.
Sure. Thank you for having me to your house.
The Bible also says, you know, a lot about how demons react to the name of Jesus. And I think you just saw it, you know, needing to downplay Jesus and immediately move to the next topic, really create a diversion. I think he got a little nervous. And it is what it is. More occult stuff. The pillars on Epstein's bookshelf in the Little St. James Temple are the Solomon's Temple pillars here. Like exact replicas, pretty much. I mean, again, black magic, the origins of magic. So, and a lot of this stuff is it requires such deep research. It requires you really shifting your worldview to understanding that even if you don't believe in all of it, some people do. And so it's real in that sense, right? We need to start getting accustomed to the fact that this is what our leaders believe in. And we need to actually, the next step is to integrate it into our understanding of them and the world. That's really the hard part. You know, I remember when I was first waking up to this stuff a couple of years ago, which was a big reason why I found Christ. When I pretty much just put it two and two together, that was like, okay, Satanism runs the world. It's clear as day. It's inarguable once you get pretty much to the bottom of the rabbit hole. The bottom of the rabbit hole, the bottom of every rabbit hole is Jesus. And that's why they don't want you looking into the rabbit holes. The bottom of every rabbit hole is Jesus. And all along the way is a bunch of guardrails and a bunch of diversions to keep you from him. Now, I know that there's people that have other religions, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to say that there's a reason why all of these Satanists don't trash talk Muhammad, Buddha, right? There's a reason why they're worshiping Baal, the enemy of Jesus from the Bible. There's a reason why they worship Satan, the bad guy from the Bible. There's a reason why they, mock Jesus specifically. There's something to that. And I remember thinking when I was first figuring all this out, I was like, just solely based on the fact that they try to keep me from Jesus so hard, I'm going to look more so into this guy and see what he's about. So more to the point, Jeffrey Epstein said that the idea that every life is equal is Catholicism at its worst, because there also is so much Jewish supremacy in the Epstein emails and the Epstein files in regards to just communication between him and other people. The use of the word goyim is all over. It's like hundreds of times it appears. A lot of trash talk of Christian beliefs, a lot of we are the chosen people, and that's to be expected. And I by no means paint all Jews with that. I know a lot of people do. Just like a lot of people want to paint the entire thing as a, Israel Mossad operation, when if you look at the files, he was clearly connected to CIA, just like the picture earlier we saw in the video with all the CIA buckets around him. He was clearly connected to Russia. He was clearly connected to the UK. It was not just a Jewish thing, but you do have to acknowledge, and you can't ignore, that Jewish supremacy did come to play in his overall ideology. So I want you to think back to my interview with Juliette Bryant, by the way, that we did early, or I guess it was in summer of 25. She's an Epstein survivor, and she is really pushed to the side a lot in terms of like all of the survivors, the ones that get put on the news a lot, the ones that get quoted. Juliette is really pushed to the side because she's willing to talk about the things that a lot of them are not, and respect to them. I know that they probably want to sound, keep it sane sounding and just want to keep it about one thing. But Juliette Bryant brought up UFOs in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. UFOs do come up in these new Jeffrey Epstein files. There is an alleged crash retrieval group called the Zodiac. This is one of these conspiracies that have been around for a while, that there's a UFO crash retrieval government program / secret society called the Zodiac. And in an email to Epstein, he's talking about the Zodiac, saying, as you know, it's one of the last secret type societies. The Zodiac is one of the really cool ones where there's only 12 members at a time, and this is very secret. So moving on from the occult stuff into some specific people, Bill Gates, you nasty MFer. You're nasty. Epstein emails allege that Bill Gates caught an STD from Russian girls and begged Epstein for a secret antibiotic to dose Melinda, his wife, without her knowing. So this pervert was doing what he did on the island, caught something, and then secretly wanted to drug his wife so that she wouldn't know that he was giving her an STD. Just the most disgusting. And it really also shows that if he's willing to abuse the medical system and abuse drugs on just his wife, and this is the guy we trust with vaccines on our children, this is the guy that we trusted during the pandemic, right? So Melinda divorced him, by the way, in 2021, citing the Epstein relationship. And here she is just today talking about this allegation of him drugging her.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad.
A little bit tight-lipped, but definitely not saying it was false, which is really disturbing. She could have very easily said if this was one of the more extreme, like less verifiable things in the file. So disclaimer. Now we're going to get into what is technically referred to and deemed in the files as unverified accusations, tips taken from the FBI, some of them anonymous. Some of the people who submitted this information were deemed non-credible, emotionally unstable, mentally ill. Although if you're a victim of something, how would you not be emotionally unstable, right? So this next part, I am leaving this up to you to believe what you want to believe. That's really all we can do. That's all I can do, because this is the unverified section of the files, right? So it's alleged that George Bush Sr. raped a male victim, and that the same victim was also subjected to a ritual sacrifice in which his feet were cut off with a sword. The victim says he mentioned a child being torn apart and having their intestines pulled out aboard a yacht. Does it sound crazy? Yes. Does crazy equal wrong? No. I don't really know what to believe about this. I'm not going to say I believe it because there is no substantiation or proof. But I'm not going to say I disbelieve it either, because what are we really left with? We're left with maybe. You know what I mean? Because this sounds unbelievable, but so does all the other stuff that's clearly real from the files. And I'm starting to think that that's actually how they get away with things, is that they do things that are so ridiculously unbelievable, so unthinkable, that you don't believe it or think of it. If your crimes are so unthinkable, no one's going to think about it. No one's going to think you could do it. So this is up to your, discretion, what you want to believe. I will say the Bushes were both part of Skull and Bones, still are, which is a cult, which is a satanic group and secret society. And that's on paper. George Bush has admitted to that. His father has admitted to that. It's not exactly outside of the behavior of satanic groups. Why nobody talks about the Bushes being in Skull and Bones, I really don't understand. Like, it's just on paper out there and admitted that they do rituals like ejaculating into coffins. But then this last thing, the eating the kid, is that just so far-fetched if they're doing that? I don't know. You tell me. I'm really not trying to push anybody to believe or disbelieve these few. You have Ron DeSantis, an accusation that he raped a man in Florida in 2008. There's really not any substantiation for this either. Again, this is the unverified section of the video. I don't know what to believe about it. And this is where you can see the not to run cover for the government at all. But you can see the rationale they probably had, which is the FBI has to accept anonymous tips, has to accept any sort of information, anyone trying to come to them with info. And so this is in the collection of info they collected. Doesn't make it true, not at all. But we're left to have to wonder. And so the rationale that the average person should not just be given this information, unfortunately, I do see that rationale. Do I agree with it? No, because I think everyone should be able to make up their own mind. But I think this just does illuminate some statements made by the administration before, even though I hate defending them in this aspect, that a lot of people can be hurt by these files too, because there are unsubstantiated claims. But again, you believe what you want to believe. You have Biden brought up. For anybody who wants to act like this is something partisan just because it was a Bush and a DeSantis, Biden comes up. The email describes alleged abuse, traveling with Epstein's circle, and it includes visits with the Clintons and the Bidens from a victim. I don't know. What I do know is anybody trying to make this a partisan thing, whenever the Epstein stuff comes out, I always feel very nonpartisan. And it kind of does feel good. It kind of feels like that post 9/11 vibe we all had. I know a lot of y'all are not even old enough to remember that. Oh my God. But, there was like a certain unity and there was a certain like nonpartisan, vibe, even though it was based on lies because the Iraq war was a lie. Damn, everything's a lie. Wow. And I'm sure that nonpartisan feeling will be disrupted within the next hour, the next time I hear somebody say something like no one's illegal on stolen land, right? So it's temporary. But this is not partisan, and anyone trying to make it that is a fool in my mind. So now on Trump, for all the people, who message me acting like I'm going to ignore all the Trump stuff. People who just discovered the word Epstein in the past year, by the way, when I've been for the past near decade talking about releasing the files. But anyways, it reveals that Trump allegedly forced a 13-year-old girl to perform oral on him and that he hit her after she bit him. Now, this particular person, it says the person was spoken to and deemed not credible. Additional research showed 3 separate incidents involving police, which requested in mandatory psychiatric evaluations. Does that mean that that is a lie? Not necessarily, but it does mean it's coming from a weak source. It doesn't mean it's true. This one has also been out there for years. I guess that came like right before the 2020 election. So make of that what you will. I don't know what to believe, like I said. The problem with this information being out, as much as I agree it should be out, is that it's left us to really make up our own minds on an individual level. But it is important to say, just like with the Biden, and there's some like Mondami stuff in there that was not true, that's unsubstantiated. So I'm just trying to show I'm not partisan here. There was stuff about Mondami that wasn't true or proven. Biden, it's not partisan. Here's another claim about Biden saying that there was sexual trips, including Biden as the perpetrator. As early as 10 or 11 years old, the victim was when this happened. So unsubstantiated, but scary. Please take care of your mental health upon learning about all this, reading about this. I personally woke up to a lot of this stuff a couple years ago, and it was very debasing. It really upset my mental for a long time. So just be aware of that. Thank you so much to Snacksy for sponsoring this video. Make sure you guys check them out in the link below or the pinned comment. Subscribe to this channel as well as my podcast channel. Follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.